Okay. So, any demo today?
Yeah. Yes, I have a demo.
About what?
Validators, form validation.
Ah, I've seen a lot of new files. It scares me.
It's gonna be okay.
Scares me. We'll
It
see.
includes client-side validation integrated
Yeah.
with the MVC stuff.
Okay, this is the MVC stuff. We'll see then. Because I saw so many files, I was like, you didn't reuse MVC validation.
Oh, it's totally reused, yeah.
Okay.
I have a demo too, and an announcement, and Zoltan is going to have a demo too.
Okay. So, I know your announcement. So it's Sipke, demo, Benedek, blah blah, and demo. Zoltan, demo and blah blah, or just demo?
I think it's just demo, without the
Okay.
blah blah. Maybe blah blah, yeah, next week.
Yeah. If it had been Piotr saying I will do a demo, I will say just blah blah. But because it's all done, so that's fine. Okay, and we'll look at the documentation updates if there are any. Okay, so let me share my screen. Nothing private here. That's cool. So I can share. And Shaun on the website. There is always time.
I can see your screen.
Cool. Okay, so let's start with myself. Updates 1 day, 3 months ago, 2 months, 5 months, 10 months, 2 days ago. What is that? Oh, this is Stanley. 7 days ago, moving, blah blah, clean up, merge. Let me see if this is Nick merging. Yes, we talked about it. Then Nick about localization changes. Is Nick here? He's not here. This is a fix from Sipke, making projection pages listable, so we can see them in the content by default. They used to be. I forgot it. Nick fixing a bug. This is the... Oh yeah, I pushed the message bus feature if anyone wants to try it. Using the default SQL. What am I? Yeah, true. Refactoring the taxonomy service. Yeah, and I will show you the update on message bus too. Refactoring taxonomy service. We talked about it last week. Oh no, we talked about it.
It was a developer meeting.
On Thursday, yeah, for the triage meeting. Yeah, this is just bug fixing the taxonomy, well, refactoring actually, and adding some nice comments in the API. This is localization changes. This is a fix from Sipke removing a useless property because we both added the same thing, but I won. fixing an infinite loop. Oh yeah, this one, interesting. Yeah, so I fixed this bug. There was an infinite loop when trying to index content items. It was not incrementing the index to load, so it was loading the same thing all the time. Fixing performance issue that Sipke found in the output cache, and I'm sure he found it the hard way by having a customer complaining about it. The issue was that two issues. In this banner, missing settings banner for the SMTP, it was initializing a new SMTP client for every request on the admin, because the message settings banner is only, well, the settings banners are only requested on the admin, and this is apparently consuming a lot of resources. And in the output cache, it was calling all the banners all the time. So it's bad. So now I changed it by checking if there is something in the message zone to see if there is any notification in the message zone. If there is a notification in the message zone, the page won't be cached. Okay.
So this referred to a bug fix because this was before the release of 1.8. This was already implementation, and then there was an issue on Coplex that complains about this issue.
Okay, then
now
please.
So maybe we should check for the actual notification shape type. I know is the notification a specific type of shape?
Okay, so
maybe we can
please
look at that.
reopen. Yeah, if you can find the bug, please reopen it and mark it as high on 1.8x, and I will look into a solution which fixes both issues while it's fresh in my mind.
Okay.
Thank you. Piotr is here. Form validation that Sipke will show us. Then new thing. So I think Piotr is the only one I didn't talk about it too, because he was not on Skype when I announced it. So oh no, here. Yeah. So I've added write access to Stanley for the source code. Here. No. Hopefully he won't break anything. So finger crossed. He created lots of changes, but on a separate branch, and he knows I need to review it before he can push it. And the weird thing is that he's not even using that, so we'll see. But he also fixed a bunch of work items which were open, and this one is the weirdest one, but it works. The idea is that when you version a content item, it's calling repository.copy at some point, and the copy is just copying the behind the session item. But if you have a list object inside your record, it won't copy it correctly. So it did that correctly, but using reflection. It fixed a bug that someone opened, and he also found the reason for the bug, and it's safe in terms of performance because it's just on when you version a content item. Fine, and it's just if you have a list inside, so we'll see how it behaves. It's on 1.8x. This is a fix to the fix. Then Sipke on layouts and forms. Because I'm playing with Visual Studio 2014, there is a new kind of folder that has to be ignored, so I've added it. And Orchard now works on VS14. It used to not work. Fixing, oh, this one is interesting. So you might have forgotten or never known about that, but there is in the tokens module, there is a feature called feeds tokens, and this creates an RSS part which you can add to any content item if you want to customize how the RSS feed is built with this content item. And actually anything that you pass will be HTML encoded in the tokenizer. But the description field of the RSS has to be not encoded. So I fixed it. And I've added also a comment to the field where you inject your tokens. The content needs to be raw HTML, i.e. not encoded. So if you edit so you can paste HTML directly inside the text box, or a token which renders HTML. I fixed the build scripts because this variable was checking it was invalidating the fact that we were loading the program file, batch file, the environment information. So I fixed it, I removed that, and I also fixed the 64 versions. Same thing for Azure. I finished the implementation for the Redis cache, and I tried it. It works great. I did that because now Redis cache is a GA, globally available. So I wanted to finish it. And by the way, while I'm at it, roadmap. I will update the roadmap. Blah, blah, blah. There must be an edit button. So audit rate done. Seems to work beautifully. Done, done, done. On track, on track. Test broken, on track. Done. Done. Done, done. Done, and maybe Orchard dot message bus on track. Saving, commit changes. Okay, this is the blogs, you don't care, and this is the stuff I was working on. New changes on the message bus. So what I did, it's here open, so look at it. I'm creating, because I wanted to implement also the Redis message bus, because the SQL Server one is not really reliable. There are some oddities. So I created you tell me what you think about it. I created a module named Redis, like we have jQuery or Lucene. And I removed the Redis output cache from the Azure module. And it actually makes sense because the Redis output cache can work even without Azure. And I'm also implementing the message bus inside. So now inside this module, we have two features, the Orchard Redis message bus implementation and Orchard Redis output cache implementation. And only this one has a reference to the Redis API. Puberty. This is puberty. This is why I have a low voice.
So you are also getting zits?
I'm getting what? Sorry?
Zits on your face?
Oh, I've always had. I never stopped having. Okay, nothing. We still hear your sound, Zoltan. Okay, so and this is one.x branch, so it can still change. And I've almost finished the implementation for the message bus on Redis, and it's actually pretty simple. You create a subscriber in Redis and you call subscribe, and for publish you just publish. It's so simple, that's crazy. We'll see if it works. Okay. Sipke Limo.
Yeah, demo. Let me start sharing my screen. So as you know, I've been working on the dynamic forms module. It was lacking validation, and now it's there. It's, or at least the basics. I didn't implement every possible validator yet, but I wanted to show you how it currently looks like. So if we go to I created a sample form called contact form.
Sorry,
It has a few fields.
Yeah, okay. I just got your screen. Yeah, okay, please continue.
Okay. So I created a sample contact form. As you can see, there's a validation summary which you can move around if you want to. You can control where it's positioned that way. Per field, there's currently 2 ways to specify validation. But the first thing you do is what? Doesn't work. Hang on.
Control F5.
I don't know. There it is. So there's as a element implementer. So you implement, for example, the text field. Well, you don't have to because it comes out of the box. But if you would implement your own form field, you can specify a list of names of validators that you support. So the system provides a number of validators. Out of the box, we have regular expression, string length, and required. And this text field supports all 3 of them. And each validator can have settings. For example, the regular expression validator can have a pattern. And every validator supports a custom validation message that you can override if you want to. You don't have to. And this checkbox lets you control whether you want to auto-generate the validation message underneath. That's the default shape implementation underneath the text field. But you don't have to. You can turn it off. And add a field, so you can control the position if you want to, or you don't add a validation message at all and just rely on the validation summary element here. So that's up to the form designer. So I have I tried a various set of. Oh, this is a new one I added specifically for checkboxes, because the required validator doesn't work for checkboxes, and that's a limitation that's explicitly implemented as such in the client-side validation library of MVC. But so I added another one. It integrates nicely with client-side validation with jQuery validate and the unobtrusive library. I'll just show you how it looks on the front end. So we publish this. We go to the front end. We have our contact form. And if we just try hitting submit, we'll see client-side validation kicking in. We can turn that off on the form level. So per form, you can control whether you want client-side validation or not using this checkbox here. So now I turn it off, publish. And now we will get a full post back, and it still works. But this time it will be validated server-side. So all of these aspects are, you can control the validation methods, whether it's client-side or no, and of course every validator, you can, as a module developer, you can provide your own validators. What's still lacking is the custom validator and maybe the remote validator, or maybe a combination of those, so that you can easily provide custom validation logic, considering using Sebastian's JavaScript interpreter library, so that you can specify some validation rules using the CMS, and it will execute both on the client side and the server side. I think that would be interesting to see if that will be possible. That's my demo in a nutshell. Are there any questions, remarks, things you like, things you don't like? Anyone? What use case calls for turning off client-side validation? Good question. I don't know, but it's an option in MVC, so I figured it should be an option in our module as well. All browsers, some scripts or same script execution policy. What do you mean, Fyodor? Some. Thank you.
I think last time we talked about it. We said it would be nice to have actually the validation at the field level. This is, the implementation is provided by the field. But here you made it extensible.
Yeah, you did mention that, but for example, required validator, it is reusable. You don't have to use it just for the text field. It could be, it's also used for the text area. It could be used for the taxonomy list, any type of drop-down list. So I thought this would make most sense. I'm not really sure how you intend it, if it would be an implementation. Also, maybe you're saying if you would implement your own form fields, then you can integrate that with your validation. But then,
yes.
Sometimes
when you provide a field, it provides also all kinds of validation you want.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But what if you want to reuse an existing validator?
To reuse string.empty or string is null white space? Wow.
Yeah, but what
and for instance, when you say list and text box have the same required validator, I don't agree. Maybe a list has a default value which makes it not selected, and still it has a, I don't know.
Yeah, so if you don't select a value,
because you suppose that when
selected.
But it's not the same validator. It's not the same requirement, because otherwise you suppose that the list has to return empty to mention that it's not selected.
Of course, that will be the requirement. The first item would have to have a empty value for it to work. Yeah. So you think it's?
I don't know if it's really reusable that much.
Well,
so you can reuse the required. I want to say, wow.
Mm-hmm.
For all this new infrastructure of providing UI extensibility, providers, and wow, that's a lot for not much, I'm afraid.
So let's go over some of the fields we have. Yeah, it's true. Currently, I'm only using it for text area, text field, and enumeration and checkbox. And checkbox has its own validator, so that's a good point. Enumeration, which is a list, might need its own.
You could say two minimum, one minimum. You could have this kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Or you could have also opposite values. I don't know, and not just I'm afraid. Like, same thing. If you enter a number, it could be from to.
Yeah. So that's like a range validator.
There are so many cases for each of the
type
fields,
of fields.
and actually I don't know if there is anything you can really reuse across everything. That's my well, question is for what cost? For what's the cost for the benefit?
In terms of what? Performance? Implementation?
No, in terms of implementation complexity.
Okay, so implementing it is very simple. It's a simple provider that you implement.
I mean, the extensibility points you've had to do in terms of UI, in terms of providers, of descriptors.
Right.
To reuse what? To reuse a required, which actually doesn't even make sense everywhere.
Yeah, that's actually a valid point. So what I will do next then is provide an implementation of text fields with a built-in validator, and it would visually look the same, because this will be validation, but just for the text field. So you wouldn't have to deal with all the others.
Because even more, usually the validation also drives the UI of the field itself. For instance, you want to validate a phone number. Well, let's also provide a specific field which will let you only enter, I don't know, phone numbers and drive you or prevent you from typing letters. I don't know. It's not just about validation. So I will not do a phone validation on a text field. I will create a phone field.
Phone field with that validation,
which might even be localized, and so that's why I'm worried about the complexity for the game.
Got it. Yeah,
and
that makes sense.
And even in the UI, you see here the validators, they appear. I don't know.
Yeah, it becomes busy on this screen.
This is easy, but yeah.
That's a good point actually. And there was something else that came to mind. I lost it.
So what do people think? I won't ask Piotr because he wants everything. Piotr and Zoltan, they want everything to be abstracted and extensible and over-engineered.
Abstracted, yes, and extensible, yes, but not over-engineered.
So what did you think about the extensibility pattern of the validators, which are completely decoupled from the fields?
I totally missed the demo because of link problems there.
Okay. So be careful, Sipke.
About what?
About having your validation more complex than your dynamic form.
Ah, right. Well, it's not more complex. It actually leverages what the dynamic forms module, or actually the layouts module provides. A very simple way to extend this with any number of tabs and settings that you want. So the implementation it's not complex, but I'm more concerned about what makes most sense for implementers and users.
Here you have a string length validation.
Yeah.
I would like to see, what's the maximum number of characters you can have in a text box? Wow, that talks more than string length.
So yeah, Seb, it's all this stuff. It kind of comes back to a similar point, which is everything on the page speaks to a developer.
Yep.
Right.
But what we need to put on the page is we need to put something that a user would want to see. You can put all the beauty of the logic behind it, just simplify it as you put it out to the user experience.
But because the validators are reusable across all the fields, you have to talk abstractly. You can talk directly to the field you are manipulating, but it has to be an abstract concept of validation. Because the code is driving actually the UI. That's also a concern.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that's
as I said, if you had a phone, you don't do a phone field here, you will do a text field and a regular expression validation, or you will have to create a phone validation that you can only add to a text field. So let's create a phone field then. It's better than just creating a validator. And with the phone field, I could have a custom language for that.
Yeah.
Well,
that's actually a good point, because at this point you would have to implement a phone validator, and then you would implement it as such that it would only appear on the phone field. It wouldn't appear here. But then the question is, why do you need a extensible infrastructure where you can reuse validators? I think that's a valid point.
So
and to Elon's point and your point is the UI would be more user friendly because you can.
Yeah.
And I'm afraid that
building a validation library, so somebody could tap into it and make some easy, quick choices.
Yeah, maybe.
All the complexity remains behind the scenes.
Yep. And this is Elon's concern, and my also concern is technically everything you have to implement to do that, to be able to have extensibility in the validations is it's a good stuff. You've done that, but all the time you spent on it, and you will have to spend on it to make and the maintenance of the code. Now I want to fix a bug. I need to get a PhD in validation to understand how to fix it.
What?
PhD.
But the core here is reusable. That's the idea, right? All the concepts are reusable. You just have to flip it a little bit on its head.
Yeah, but you could have internally you could have created a required validator class, that's just a class, that if I create a text box that needs a required field, I can use that if I want. But again, it contains nothing, because required has no logic. It's one line of code of free use. So, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so that makes sense. Are there any other opinions about that? PHP and validation, yeah.
Well, just to add to the usability concern, since validation is a very complex task, I don't think we can do better than develop providers for most of the cases where some easy configuration is possible for users. Apart from that, for the flexibility, having some kind like regular expression validator like Sipke showed, or even with scripting enabled, is a good compromise. But of course, this will only work for the developer.
In terms of UI, you could have the very standard validation. At first, showed always like required, very simple, and you could have expanding zone like advanced validation, and you will have regular expression and things like that.
Okay, so but this would be a validator.
I did this, yeah. No, well,
fields.
and this will be the validation for text field with the validation UI for the text field.
Right.
You could copy paste it if you want for the text area, fine, or maybe it's the same field with just a number of lines. But yeah.
But the idea would be
in terms of implementation, it's not that hard or harder than what you did. It's simpler because there are less classes, and when you want to create a field, you copy paste existing stuff. I agree. But in terms of UI and code simplicity, that's better.
You get more flexibility, and it's more aimed towards a better user experience, which is good. Okay, so I'll take that into consideration and see what I can do.
Sorry, but it's good.
No, that's fine.
Technically, it's good. The question is it worth it?
Yeah, absolutely. And to your point, if the code is less complex, it's not that complex, but it is more complex than it will be when validation is aimed or targeted at a specific field. So, and it would make this UI nicer because I don't really like it's cluttered. There's a lot of fields here, which I care less about.
And some you will never use, like the regular expression, but the required is mostly used. The string length too. Yeah, Yeah, it's true, and for that reason I wanted to introduce the email field, but then you only use the regular expression with the default value, so it should be in code and not configurable, maybe configurable for advanced settings.
Could you take these patterns and put them in a library, because they really are only things that mostly developers will understand. So, and because it's ideally available as part of a module or something, right? If the library needs to be extended, then people can add various patterns that then become accessible.
Yeah, absolutely. But it shouldn't be exposed like this to the common user.
Look, I'm a nothing in comparison to everybody here in terms of their ability to understand this stuff, and so this means absolutely nothing to me. I mean, I can make it out, I can try. What's important to me is I want to have some type of validator against an email to make sure that it's a valid email. That's all I care about when I'm building a form.
Right. Yeah.
So when you paste an email field, it should already be validated for emails.
Exactly.
Right.
You shouldn't have
you just can configure the message, and you don't provide a regular expression for emails on a text box.
I agree with Lan. We should when you create a text field, you should have just a choice of user just choose one of the predefined validators. But the definition of those validators can be complex like this. So you could add, email validator, phone validator, some social security number validator, so on.
But those will be specific fields. So, for example, social security number will be a field called social security number, and the validation will be baked into that field.
Yeah, but you may have a validator that's can be used by more than one field. I don't know. Maybe
in terms of code, you mean, not in terms of UI?
But in terms of UI and in terms of it could just be reused. So maybe we should just allow users to create new validators and just show them here, show those validators here, and with some button that, okay, create new validator, but it's an advanced setting, right? You go to create your own validator, and then you have all those options like regular expressions and all kinds of things you can do with the values. Check if it's in a range or if it matches against a set of predefined values or something like that.
Okay, so you're saying you should be checkbox. So what to the user should be a checkbox, but at the same time you're saying the user should be able to create new validations using the UI?
If he wants. So, but by default, it should be just, we shouldn't display this. We should just display a list of validators that are available in the system. Whether it's a phone validator or number validator, user will choose which one he wants to use for his field. But if such validator is not there, he could just create his own and provide a regular expression and other kinds of logic that returns whether the field is valid or not. This is just because I'm dealing with the same issue for a project, and this is the thing that clients. This is the only way the clients would like to work with that. They don't care about regular expressions or stuff like that.
Of course. So you're suggesting instead of seeing something like this, you would see still a list of validators with just checkboxes, and instead of having a regular expression, it would, for example, be an email validator, and actually that would be an instance of a regular expression configured using the correct pattern.
Exactly. And you could have a link called edit or aside, on the side of this checkbox, so you could edit this this validator if you want. But it's it's not on the first screen.
Sebastian, what do you think about that? Because
can we add some more PowerShell and some ice cream on top of that, and it will be easier?
Of course.
Yeah.
You could use PowerShell to,
make it specific. The time we spent talking about it, you could have implemented 3 different fields with their own specific validation.
Yeah,
you are just adding issues there, no solutions, issues.
Okay, so the idea is to keep it simple. Yeah.
Yeah. This feature, dynamic forms, dynamic layouts, is for end users. Done. Yeah. It's not for developers. As a developer of a website, I won't do that. This module is not for me. This is for the end users, the simple users. So.
Yeah, that's why we should have.
But as a developer, I can go and add.
As a developer, I will never reuse your helpers for regular expressions or whatever.
No, but as a developer, what you might do is submit to a library various patterns that support. Let's say Sipke starts with 5 of them today, and he's got a phone one, and he's got one for 7 digits, which might cover social security numbers and other things, and he may have one for email, and that's all he has. Other folks may come up with a list of other 10 very commonly used ones, and then we'll submit, and Sipke will review and say yes, and now there's a library that grows.
To that I answer that Sipke will provide a phone field which validates phones. And if I want my custom phone fields, I will copy-paste his phone field and call it my French phone field and change his code by copy-pasting. I'm not trying to reuse whatever number of digits or spaces or chars available in the phone number. I will copy-paste his field and make my French phone field. Because there is nothing you can reuse there. Same thing for social security number. I will copy-paste the social security number and make it my own, because there is nothing to reuse there. Regular expressions, there is nothing to reuse there. I will reuse the C# regular expression class. That's it.
Yeah, so the idea is you will be, that library will be a library of form fields, including their validation rules.
Provide some form fields in different features, like standard ones like email, phones, city, whatever you can imagine, And if people want custom ones, they create their own module, they copy paste your features, your fields, and done.
Yeah. That's
I like the phone sample. Should it be possible for it so that it will come? So you would have a phone field with a validation thing. Should the regular expression used for that be exposed for advanced users? Like it should be hidden by default.
It's about your field. Maybe we'll have 10 phone fields. One which settings will include the regular expression, another one which will select, you will select the region, another one which will use the localization culture for using a default pattern very well known, and we'll have a gallery with fields on it. And we have a gallery and there will be modules for fields and people will use the ones they want. Mm-hmm. That will be fine. Mm-hmm. Because they're so different.
Right, so those would be different fields as well. A French phone field and a US phone field.
Yeah, so don't try to do that. Let people do that and put it on the gallery because all the needs are different.
Yeah, makes sense. I like it.
There will be one module with standard ones, but the standard will just provide 10% of the people, and everyone will create their own, I'm sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I agree. I like that.
But this will be the developer's job. Then the user in the admin will just see my phone field for my super duper website and use that. Done. Because the dev made it for him. Or use one which is dedicated for him as the customer decided. Because one customer will want, I don't know, a message. The other one will want a star. The other one will want to call you when the phone is I don't know. So you don't know.
That's why I implemented this extensible library of validators.
And maybe I personally will want to use a text box with a regular expression. My choice. But that's cool.
Yeah, so that will be a separate field. That's what you said. You would
separate fields, yes, with custom validation, with their own validation.
Right. Okay.
And I just copy paste 2 files, and I have a new field. Boom. I can put it in a module and reuse it and share it.
So Sebastian, you're saying that the validation should be bound to a field?
Yes, this is my first idea. Remove all this crap of extensibility and UI extensibility. It's beautiful, but that's over-engineered.
But you shouldn't be able to choose more than one validation from a set of validations for a field?
The meeting is recorded. I think you will be able to rewrite it because we talked about it. I think each module should come with all the validation it needs and just provide what it provides. And if you want more, copy paste the field and create your own field. And we focus on the UI usability because we don't want to see regular expression in all these fields. An advanced scenario.
Okay, so the field comes with the validation.
Unless my field is called regular expression text box, and this is the only field, the only validation I have, a regular expression. So
I like it because it solves this UI problem here that I have. So. And it will simplify the implementation. So
yeah, and again, the current implementation I see is nice, but I think is too much. So remove some nice UIs we could have had.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and the nice thing is I could, if I wanted to use this myself, I can extract this from this module, provide it as part of my own module because the entire thing is extensible. So
copy pastable.
So, Sebastian, when you have a generic text field, so by default you won't be able to put any validation in it because it won't come with any validation.
If it's called a text field, you will have standard text validation like required, limit of chars, maybe a regular expression. Yeah, and if then you have a first name field, maybe it will have different things. Mm-hmm. And maybe you will have load a module which will have 100 different fields. And this is exactly what you want in your app, 100 different fields and very specific needs. And I'm sure we'll have that.
Okay. Yeah, so instead of having fields and validators, we have just fields.
Fields, like we have today. But we might have different. So those fields are already done for the UI, for the front end, and not the admin, like we have in the current field implementation for the admin. And there will be a file field things that people have always wanted on the front end, a file field. There will be one, maybe as a separate module, and maybe there will be 5 different implementations because one will save in the info set, one will save a different file, one will check the, I don't know, whatever. There is not one answer.
Yeah, so that's open and it's extensible. Shaun mentioned he didn't like the validation word. He thinks it should be maybe underneath properties. Validation settings, like a checkbox here, this field is required. And then there will be a field with a custom message.
This is up to the field, but then
up to the field.
I like the validation tab because it's clear for anyone that, this is how to validate thing, and yeah.
My end users think that validation is for parking tickets. They wouldn't understand what's validation. Are we selling something? So I don't think that's a good term.
Maybe required could be in properties and some other advanced validation.
Just a little box that says required. I don't think we need anything else.
What about the validation message? For example, by default it would say the field name is required, but maybe you want a custom message like, please provide your first name. That should be
maybe this one could be in validation tab. So this is specific to each field. Yeah, I don't know. This I don't care.
Maybe just change the wording, not validation, but I don't know, correctness or something like that.
This is worse.
No, but there is no better word.
Just put it under properties. There's only going to be one of them, which is the required and then a message. It doesn't need a whole new tab for that.
So properties with validation, and validation will be advanced, and when you click on advanced, you have more validation or more properties. It's not about what it is, but if it's standard or not standard settings.
Yeah, so the most common properties you would see here. Also, we have properties, we have settings, which is common to all elements, and then we have advanced.
Yeah. But take it as an opinion. Once you have 10 opinions, you might get something.
That's a good idea.
You have Shaun's opinion.
Yeah,
it's worth a tenth of a 10 opinion.
Very valuable, though.
But yeah, this can be changed later. It's just a UI matter.
Yeah.
The same logic will apply. So yeah.
Okay. Cool. Thanks. This was very helpful.
People don't care. Yeah, just you, Piotr, and Shaun. Right. Maybe they're all watching the soccer game.
Yeah, I don't care. I know what validation is.
Yep. Okay.
And people will learn. They can learn. They'll just click around and see.
But good job. It's nice. I like it.
Thanks.
We'll have a forms module.
Yep.
A third one. But actually, a third different purpose. So that's fine. Beautiful.
Yeah. It's just the names class.
So let's go on because we don't have much time, and we have Benedek, blah blah, and demo.
Okay, cool. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'll take over. Tell me if you can see my screen. So in the meanwhile, I just describe what's happening. So what I did is I have a piece of PowerShell script, so Peter is going to like it. And the aim of this PowerShell script is to check whether a Visual Studio project file is consistent with the file system. So what it means is that it's going to check if the files that are added to your Visual Studio project file are present on the disk, and the files that are present on the disk are added to the Visual Studio project file. And I'm going to demonstrate it with Orchard, because there was 2 commits 11 days ago, which were actually fixing the project files. Can you see my screen yet?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So as you can see, I deleted a few files here and added one to the themes.csproj. So the script is actually very simple. I'm going to show you how it works before I fix some csproj files. Here's the script running. So it awaits one parameter. It can either be a path of a folder. If you give it a folder, then it's going to look for csproj files recursively. if you specify a csproj file, then it's going to just check that one. So as you can see, there are a lot of config files that are not added to those project files. I didn't fix those because they aren't really necessary. Due to some really special cases, we have a few false negatives, which are going to be fixed soon, I hope. But the interesting part is, for example, this one. So in the Orchard Archive Later project, there are two CS files in the view models folder, and there are a few other ones that are, as you can see, present on the file system, but they are not added to the relevant csproj files, and that's because those files aren't needed anymore, and but they weren't deleted from the disk. So this is the change set Sebastian did 11 days ago, and I'm going to update to the one that I did here and run the script again. And now you're going to see all those config files and a bunch of other stuff and some false negatives, but as you can see, there are a lot less entries here. So there were like 10 files, for example, I think, in some of the csproj files that were actually deleted or moved to someplace else, but they were still there in the file system. They were still in the repository, and this is a nice way to check if your csproj files are correct. And well, the aim or the usage is to integrate such a script with your continuous integration system, for example. But so it's not correctly, it's not 100% bulletproof due to some false negatives. So it needs some tweaking, but it's certainly useful to display a few warnings and notify the developers if there are any csproj files that need to be fixed. So that's how these two commits were made. So they were checked using this PowerShell script. And the reason I'm showing you this is because we're going to open source this PowerShell script. So it's going to add it to the Orchard Dojo library. And so you can check it out, use it, contribute to it, and if you have any feedback regarding the script, if you find any bugs, and then please notify us or contribute. Any remarks?
So we already have that, and why not extend what we have already, and which is already part of the CI, whatever CI you use, because it's part of the MS build scripts. So for instance, right now we have a validate extension project files. We have one which will check if you have content and not none in the file. If it's in the project, it could be extended to check that every file is in the project.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I didn't know about that.
What? So, yes, you know.
Oh, but
no?
What do you mean?
So, for instance, you create a text file, you add it in your project, and you mark it as known in terms of action to do.
Yeah, that's right.
So this will break the build, because it will tell, hey, you forgot to mark it as content. If you have it in the solution, it must be content, otherwise there is no reason to have it in the solution. That things like this. And we changed it recently to say, no, for instance, TS files should not be content, but the result of the TS file should be content. Same thing for .less files.
I remember. Okay.
See? So we have a step for that in the build that could be extended for this kind of stuff, like you said, and at least for warnings, so that we don't forget any files, so we can remove old files. So this is the first step. Also, we could have maybe fxcop to ensure that we are doing correct stuff with the code rewrite. So yeah, just an idea.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So if it's inside, so the project is called MS Build Tasks, and it could be extended, and people could write their own MS Build script to check specific things. There could be even stuff like, hey, you wrote a driver and there is some code outside of the lambda, be careful, warning.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it could be an fx crop rule, things like that. And people could ignore that or not ignore.
Okay. Yeah, well, the MS Build task projects inside Orchard are Orchard specific, basically. Yep. But yeah, so this is this is all.
I agree. It might depend on each of the projects what we want to block on. But I like the idea of we have a CS file which is not in the project, doesn't make sense, so we should block on the build for that. Definitely. Like we block on the build if we have a file which is not content and is, for instance, a JPEG file. I don't know.
Right.
We have that. Cool. And the announcement?
Yeah, so the announcement, as the translators have been notified recently, and well, you may already know this if you read the forums. So there was an idea about the gallery modules and themes to be moved to a different crowding project, because before this state we had the source modules and themes and the deprecated modules and a few gallery modules and themes inside the same crowding project. But some of the users requested that the gallery should be separated from the main translation project. So I actually did the migration, and so now they are separated. As you can see in this project, which is the Orchard CMS Gallery project, we have the gallery modules and themes separated, so you can translate them separately and track the progress separately. A little bit of administrative overhead is that all the users that want to translate the gallery modules and themes do need to apply to both projects, but it's really not a big issue, so just a few clicks. And I'm going to show
If we want to add a project to a folder, do we have to ask you?
If you want, I can make you a manager of the project, so you'll be able to.
Well, I say if anyone wants to add a folder for its own module from the gallery.
Oh, I see. Well, a project manager is needed for that.
Okay. Did you update the documentation for that?
No, not yet.
Okay, cool. Well, it's already lots of work, so won't complain.
Yeah, okay, so one last thing. So the localization page is also updated on the website. So if you check this page, you can see that you can also download the gallery package and the source package separately.
Beautiful.
For all the languages. Yeah, that's it.
Very good. Next on my list, Zoltan Dimo.
Yeah, sure, Shaun. I will share my screen, and in the meantime, Benedek, let me know when you can see it. And in the main line, I will share a link. Of course, every one of you already heard about Orchard because I've shown this during the summer or something like this. But there is something new now, and something for the end users. Ilan would like it, but he's not here anymore. Can you see it, Benedek?
It's still loading.
It's still loading. Okay, so when I first demoed Orchard, and for the newcomers, Orchard is a site where you can play with Orchard on automatically reinstalled demo sites. So you can go there, select a site, and play with it without having to install anything, to register, or anything. And when I first demoed it, I think probably Sebastian had the idea that there could be a full walkthrough, like with tooltips and everything, that would guide you through learning Orchard, learning how to use Orchard in very basic steps.
It's loaded now.
And now we have to this. It's loaded?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So I won't spoil the whole thing for you, but here it is. Here it is what you can see on the demo sites of Orchard. There was such a walkthrough before, but it was just a demonstration. Now it's something actually usable. So when you first visit it, there is some welcome message, blah, blah, blah. And then you can click these next buttons, and it will guide you through the very basics of using Orchard. So here is, for example, the sign in. So yeah, here I can sign in. because it guides me through the sign-in. But of course, for everybody who has seen Orchard, is trivial, but this is also something you as a newcomer should learn. Yeah, so we can sign in, and once we sign in, we get a message again that we can now go to the dashboard. On the dashboard, we have these tooltips again. Okay, here is some CSS error now. So apparently we don't have the tooltips now, but believe me, it was working. Anyway, when it's working, it guides you through creating a page, creating a blog, writing a blog post, also inserting a media, managing and writing comments, probably also managing menus. Well, opening the navigation administration page, ending a link, also a bit about user management, and a bit about the basic settings that you can see under the settings screen. So, long story short, this is a way to teach users, absolute beginner users, how to use Orchard for the very basic tasks. And the idea here is that this is a generic walkthrough, when it works, of course, but you can write similar walkthroughs, or we could even write different walkthroughs for TryOrchard itself, or for .NET, that guides you through doing specific things in Orchard in a very interactive, very user-friendly way. So that's it, guys.
Cool. If you read the comments, we mentioning that you could use Bootstrap because the theme machine sucks. And I mean also the get of this site is really people who want to discover Orchard, and this is not the first nice view of Orchard. I'm sure it should be very easy for you because it's just a default recipe to change using Philip's theme.
Yeah, that's a very good idea. Actually, we have several themes from .NET already there, also from Philip, two themes, the Bootstrap based, and also 3 Bootstrap based themes from
Cool. Cool.
All of them better.
And with some nice content, even if you have to copy paste it, that would be even better. Because there were lots of content, maybe you don't need to show all this content for a test website like this. But I like the idea with the pages and the different kind of pages. That's
this
cool.
is probably overwhelming. Thanks for the feedback.
Cool. So, we won't have much more time. Priorities. So yeah, Shaun has been working on a website by himself still. What? So yeah, Shaun, you want to share your Yeah,
you can show it. It's just the normal pages that are normally there. I just need feedback on the questions that I posted and on colors.
Yeah, Shaun is a Starbucks.
Shaun is our what?
At Starbucks.
Yeah, that's unfortunate, isn't it?
We could hear it.
So does anybody have any answers to these questions that I pasted?
Yes, I think the answer is yes.
Okay, so the first one is yes. Okay.
What is the first one? Sure. I was answering yes to all the questions. Should the HTML code quality be high in the prototype? No.
Like, I'm just throwing it together right now. I'm not worrying about the code quality because I guess we're going to change it. Okay, cool. That makes sense.
What do we add to the customers page? I saw your tweet, or I don't know, your Skype messages. Show Orchard. And don't try to make a website where people can provide their own website. It's Show Orchard. this is the goal of short.com. There is a form, and maybe we should improve it with the new forms module. But there is a submission form so that people can provide their new website.
Okay. So customers will just be a demo of, or like a bunch of iframes or screenshots or something?
Yep.
Okay.
We can extract the data from, we can make some custom projection on ShortShot and include them in the website, or reuse the content.
The chat page?
The chat page. Do we need a chat page?
It was in the wireframe.
Yeah, I don't think we need the chat page. A link to Jabber is sufficient.
Okay, I'll kill that.
Kill the chat. What do we add to the weekly meeting section?
Maybe like a YouTube link or like embedded videos for YouTube?
Weekly meeting sections. Where is the weekly meeting section? Oh, it's the at.
Here's a link.
Isn't it just about a simple text explaining we have weekly meetings and how to connect?
Sure, sounds good.
Or is that we have already a page for that? I don't think so.
No, I think this is the only place meetings are mentioned. So
Take
just a link. Okay.
Take the content from the current website.
Okay. And then colors. Bertrand mentioned it wasn't orchardy enough, so I added the ability to do a color picker.
Saw that. Beautiful.
But I'm not a graphic designer, so I'm terrible with color theory. So if anybody thinks they're good with colors, I'd love submissions.
Yeah, I'm not sure you should care about it. What we should do is ask a designer to create a nice Photoshop showing maybe 2 different colors or patterns, and we can decide on that and go with that. Yeah. Because the one from Web Advanced was really just wireframing, but it was already nice in terms of content arrangement. But now we need maybe a nice one with colors and maybe logos and, I don't know, spaces and things like that.
Yeah. So I won't put any more energy into colors. I'm just going to leave it kind of black and white.
Yeah, we need to find someone who can provide that like quickly.
Cool.
I mean, with not much effort.
So I think by Wednesday, the prototype, like the HTML prototype, will be done by Wednesday. Is my sense.
Okay, cool.
And then we'll need a recipe from like Benedek or Zoltan or something like that, so we can start coding it into Orchard.
I'm just browsing the site right now.
By recipe, you mean like an export from the current Orchard project?
Yeah, that's right.
Oh yeah, that's possible if there are no bugs in the each export when you will Orchard download it. Fix that to prevent that from being or using it. Because Orchard project.net is 106.
Okay, Zoltan, we can talk more about that on Skype.
Sure.
Cool, man. So that's all I got.
Yeah, so next week we'll talk about the documentation updates, and Bertrand will show us his HQL editor. You haven't blogged today, Bertrand? Or did I miss something? No, he hasn't blogged. That's it. Okay, thank you guys. No more questions? Comments? Okay, let's watch the game now. Thank you guys. Bye bye.
Bye bye.
See you later, guys.
Bye everyone.